Hello, my name's Mike, and I want you to come with me on a journey to find out about mining in South Wales. Now I know what you're thinking, haven't we done enough on mining? But no, this is going to give you a way into the mines that you've not had before. We're going to get under the skin of some of those characters and people that were so extraordinary, those people who work so hard in the mines. You're going to hear stories about toothpaste sandwiches down the bottom of the pit. We're going to give you some extraordinary stories from the characters and the people who worked in the mines. Come with me on that journey. Let's find out what mining was really all about.
If you listen carefully, you can still hear the voices from underground. Echoes of the past still vibrating around the Welsh valleys. The last miners are collecting pensions and telling their stories to those who will listen. They know they are a dying breed as the world moves on, still choking on carbon. This land shaped the people, from farmers to miners and from coal to dough. The winding mechanisms, pit ponies and pit baths have all been replaced by zip wires, wind turbines and BMX parks. The coal tips have been reborn and rewilded with a diversity of plants and bug life. But the signs of the mines are still there if you know where to look. Historical treasure trove of half-buried train tracks and rusting machinery. There are sculptures, statues and notice boards as the keeper of the collieries stands guard over a cultural trail rich in memories, the memories of a community long gone but never forgotten.
Well, I'm up here on the bulk mountain and it's blowing a cold wind. My hands are freezing. Now, why are we up here? Because where did the story of coal start? It really started here in rural Wales, because this landscape, this will remain unchanged. But when you look further down and you look to Nanty Mole over there, and I've got Cwm Park and Treorchy over there, those communities, they would not have existed without coal. It brought people to the South Wales valleys. I say brought people, the population of Cardiff, for example, which grew around the coal industry, between 1801 and 1901, Cardiff's population rose from 6,000 to 172,000. Wales's population went from 500,000 to 2 million. That's in the space of 100 years. Nearly 70% of the Welsh population was really all situated in the South Wales valleys, with a little bit Carmarthenshire, Monmouthshire and Wrexham. But that's how it really started. We want to tell you about that story of coal because it's so important to what the current population of Wales is all about. And there are people now, if you're under 30, you won't remember what Wales with a pit working. And yet many of us remember when there were just nothing but pits, and it brought people to South Wales and it generated so much income. So come with us on a journey as we explore some of those characters, some of those stories about what happened underground in that brutal workplace that was so tough. Come on, let's have a look.
Our story, isn't it, from the mining point of view, is 200 years covers a lot. You know, when you come in back to an era when perhaps there was a farmer digging a bit of coal out of the hillside, using it on the thing, then the monks, Margam, start selling coal and passing it all around. But when you get to the mid-19th century, the thing absolutely booms. It's the most important thing in the world, you know. And miners become some of the most important political people in the world, because if they decide to stop, the country stops, you know. Strikes in the First World War were stopped pretty quickly because they couldn't make munitions, they couldn't do anything, could they? The miners weren't working. It's the whole story of Wales for 100 years. Whatever anybody says, it all revolves around coal. It's a massive industry, and it's not like a folky industry. It's very highly technical industry, very important industry. People can make money by inventing a really good safety lamp. You know, it's simple as that. Because we see it now, oh, it's a lamp, it's, you know, you sit it on the thing. That's a scientific instrument. And if you get it wrong, you can kill hundreds of people.
Duh, it was freezing on that mountain. It was Baltic. Nice to be back, comfy, having a hot cup of tea. But there's a lot to get into, a lot more characters to show you, a lot more to unpick. So here we go. Let's get into the story of the mines. Let's go a bit further, dig a bit deeper.
Oh, my name is John Gates, and I worked down the pit till they closed it a few years ago. It was all...
Pit was full of characters. What we didn't realise that we developed into those characters.
The blow. And most of my pals, they were in the same boat when they closed that colliery down.
What was the stuff you shouldn't have done, Sam? I'm intrigued.
Well, myself and my mate, we went to pit top. None of the electricians wanted us. So we decided to go trouting for the day.
We're always taking a was. It's one big laugh here, and it's just like being underground. There were always initiation ceremonies.
When I first started, I thought there was Jack the lad, really, you know, being young, fit and strong. But obviously these old colliers and miners were a bit tougher than me. So what they decided to do is the steel arches in the heading, they decided to lift me up there and put my belt through one of the arches, so it's suspended up on the rooftop, and left me hanging there for about a couple of hours, which actually I ended up wetting myself in the end. So after a couple of hours, they eventually got me back down, and I understood where my pecking order was then.
So where we were, lamps caught, snuck off the pit up to the river, go trouting. Of course, come 11 o'clock, we were feeling a bit hungry, so we decided to go back down to the pit. So we went in the electric shop, put the kettle on. Of course, the engineer came over, and the assistant engineer. So I dived, I kicked the kettle over. So the engineer said, there's rats in there. And the assistant engineer said, yes, two-legged ones. I'm not saying what he'd said to us, but the air was blue.
Believe it or not, you were a boy underground until you had a working place of your own. So you could be a boy at 19 years of age. But there was the youngsters that came into the colliery and say, my boy is stronger than yours. I doubt that very much. My boy can lift up 2 bags of stone dust. It's 112 pounds now. You know, that's a bit of a weight, isn't it? So they go up, and as soon as it goes on top of his, he's got it up there, somebody pulls out a knife and cuts the bag. Stone dust, like Father Christmas.
So anyway, for the punishment now, the engineer decided to give us a task of rolling a 55-gallon drum of oil up an incline 1 in 3. As soon as his back was turned, we seen the JCB drive, and then the machine took it up for us.
It's Saturday night in my stake town. Footsteps are shuffling on stone. There's a dance at the local town hall that the miners built for us all. 2 tickets please sir, who's on tonight? Well, there's a lad from Ponty you'll see. He sings all the classics, Sinatra and Elvis. It'll cost you 40p. It was where we went for a good time. It was where we went for a pint. And when life got too busy and the pressure ran high, it'll be alright on the night.
You had your pay on a Friday, and obviously the first thing we do, there was a pub at the bottom of Coinland Hill called the Ddogfen Hotel, and we used to go in there without pay, and we'd have a couple of pints and we'd play cards, and we'd go downtown then. Obviously shopping on a Friday was a big thing in my stay at the time, in the 70s, go shopping. And I used to go to a shop called Gwyn's, and I used to put 50 pence every week to buy a Wrangler jacket, because Wrangler jackets during that time were all the things like. And we used to love going to discos and everything like that.
What about the things like music and fashion? Was that important to you? Because you're talking about, what are you talking about, the 60s, 70s?
63 we started.
63.
We had check trousers, flower power shirts, we had everything.
Well, it was the swinging 60s, wasn't it? I was earning good money. By the time I was 16, 17, I could walk into a tailor's and have 2 suits made.
It was a very young workforce, and half of them used to play in rock bands, because every street in the valleys had their own little rock band, didn't they? Working with one boy, and his group was called Nirvana, but he wasn't that one.
Most causes of fights when we used to go to town hall dances and stuff in pubs was over girls. You wanted to chat a girl up, and then perhaps a boyfriend would come in and stuff like that and catch you, and then they'd say, you know, do you want to go outside or something like that, you know, to sort it out. But half the time you wouldn't get to outside, you'd start right where you are.
It wasn't all dour, tough, working underground, sweating, and that was part of it. But there were some humorous times when things were quite funny.
We always used to ask each other, what have we got in your sandwiches, you know? They say, what have you got in your sandwiches, Jip? And I say, oh, bloody tomato and lettuce again. I'm fed up with it, I have every shift. When I went home, I plucked up the courage and said, Mum, she said, what's the matter, boy? I'm a bit fed up with lettuce and tomato. I said, can I, you know, is there any chance for anything else? And she was silent, you know. When I went into the next shift, I said, I don't know what I got in mind. So I took a bite of it and I spat it out. And they said, Jip, what's the matter with you? I said, I got bloody toothpaste sandwiches, I said. They said, don't be so stupid. I said, yeah. I said, look. Anyway, when I went home, I said to my mother, what the hell you put toothpaste in my sandwiches for? She said, you won't bloody complain about tomato or lettuce again, will you, boy?
Mining has shaped the valley in which I live. It's all around me. I live in a house first built for the miners in the early 1900s. Looking through my bedroom window every morning, I see the scars on the hillside of the past mining industries. I'm Maya, and I'm proud to be a descendant from a family of miners. Walk with me to find out how my great-grandparents lived and died while working underground. What did it feel like when you were 15 years old going down to the pit?
Oh, it was an adventure. It was great until you got in the cage. and you started to go down the pit, and the cage droppings down, and your ears would pop. You'd have to swallow to equalise the pressure on your ears. The smell when you hit pit bottom was totally different. You had fresh air you would be breathing up there, but when you came down, you had all the smells: horses, human sweat, oil.
How many feet down did you go on your first time down?
Somewhere about 900 feet down.
900 feet? So you dropped 900 feet down?
Yeah.
So you were actually, on that very first one, as Maya says, it was a bit scary, was it?
It was. Really, you got butterflies in your stomach. You get in the cage and the people would joke and chat. You weren't ready until you got down on that bottom of the pit. You were very apprehensive. You didn't really know what was going to happen.
Well, we've done our little tour with John. It was really interesting, Maya, wasn't it, that tour?
Yeah, it was really interesting.
But talking about interesting, what is that?
My hot chocolate.
Your hot chocolate. How many hot chocolates you had today?
3.
3. Ma'am, it's on film. She's had 3 hot chocolates, just so you know. I want to get back to some of this information you've brought, because you've already told us that the birth certificate that we showed earlier, this is 1868. This is the Edward Davis. This is your great-great-great-great-grandfather, yeah?
Yeah.
Now, you've also brought another piece that you've been doing when you were doing your research. Yeah. You brought this, which is a memorial, but it's got all the men on this. And it says, these men met their death in a pit-winding accident in the Garth Colliery in 1897. And that includes this great-great-great-great-grandfather. Is he on here, then?
Yeah.
Which one is he?
It's that one at the top.
John Davis. Now let me then get to, and then you brought this lovely photo of this lovely, you know, kind-looking gentleman. Who's this?
That's my great-great-grandfather, Grandpa Daniels.
So your great-great-grandfather. So we're coming through the family, aren't we?
Yeah.
Through the generations, and we're coming to your great-great-grandfather. But what is brilliant is, when John saw this photo on the table, you said, I know him.
I know it. Tom. Worked with Tom in Coin and Colliery.
Wow.
So he worked with your great-great-grandfather in Coin and Colliery. How brilliant is that?
Every generation of my family, I've lost someone in the industry. And this might sound sad, but my dad was killed in Tower, 6th of the 3rd, 63. You'd never forget that, would you? But still, that date always in my mind, because I was a young kid. He meant so much to me.
My father was a miner, both my brothers were miners.
When I told my father I got a job with the coal board, he went absolutely ape. What do you want to work down there for? He played absolute hell.
But I was a disappointment to my father. My father didn't want me to go underground.
It was a time when people didn't want to go mining. You know, that was of the past. They didn't want to work in underpaid, dirty, horrible conditions and what have you, you know. So it was, miners didn't really want their sons to work underground, very few of them anyway.
My father would have told me, no, you're not going underground, but I did. I had a clip across the ear for doing it, but I became a miner. I got 2 lads in the house. If one of them said they wanted to become a miner, would I tell them no? I don't think so. As long as that's what they're happy with, I would let them do it.
Would you want to work underground? That's a difficult question to ask now, isn't it? With the whole industry has disappeared, but whole families were absorbed in the whole mining industry. We all know about Sengenith. Over 400 miners died. We know about Six Bells, and we know about, of course, Aberfan. It was that very serious side of where people lost their lives.
I remember working in a training phase, conventional phase, where the bloke in the next tent to me, a big stone from a roof fell down and crushed him. It crushed his lungs and everything and broke his collarbone.
I've seen accidents underground. I've seen people with been run over by a tram, and I've had to take care of that with the bones of his ankle poking through his welly. No blood, just his 2 white glistening bones poking out.
It was danger all about every day. You want to be aware of things. You know, some of the accidents were terrible.
Well, I don't think it as a miner who hasn't seen a really serious accident. Myself and my brother were blown up, and I could remember my brother shouting to me, Michael, Michael. I thought, who's that? I thought I'd gone to heaven, to be honest. Where are you? Where are you? Well, I couldn't answer him. It seemed like I was like, but it wasn't. It was a matter of minutes. But it was terrifying at the time.
I did what I did at the time. It must have been adrenaline kicking in. Did everything I did. I took care of him, took him to the surface, spoke to the doctor, as I've said. I went back underground. I replaced the morphia I'd used. I went to speak to my boss, and all of a sudden, I was ill. I was absolutely, I puked my belly up. That's a shock, I believe. Didn't show it at the time, but it must have worked its way through my body. I was heaving like a good one.
You know, to a 16-year-old boy, to see, you know, these accidents and things like that, you know, some people lost fingers, and they were nasty accidents underground, very nasty. Many people didn't survive. So you have to be on your wit's end all the time, because that stone above you, it weighs tons and tons. So you have to be cautious as well. You have to do your work and also be cautious of the surroundings around you.
I was taught how not to kill myself, and more importantly, how not to kill somebody else underground.
My father's death taught me so much with my mum. My mum being a widow, I remember saying to me, you know, Ty, I never had time to say I loved him. I never had time to give him the last crutch.
Now, you can't talk about mining in South Wales or in Britain generally without talking about the strikes. 1972, 1974, and of course the big one in 1984-85, which was a seminal moment in British history. My own experience of the strike was I was travelling back and forward to Birmingham, and I picked up 2 striking miners. And as I was driving along the M4 to go back up to Birmingham, a police car pulled me over. I said, well, what have you stopped me for? They said, oh, your tyres looked a bit bald. But they also said, who's those 2 blokes you got in the car? I said, well, the 2 blokes I just picked up. And they said, you don't want to be picking up people like that, you know.
I had a phone call one morning from the South Wales Police and asked me if Ken Selby, which is my father, lived at the address. And I said, yes, he does. I said, what have happened? Oh, just to let you know that he'd been arrested. I jacked obviously the transporter bridge, but I did a bit of research regarding it, and I found out my cousin was one of the arresting officers.
At 16, you had a phone call to the house, your dad is arrested. How did that make you feel? Because you're supposed to be the rebellious 16-year-old. How did that make you feel?
First of all, I was very shocked. You don't expect a phone call off the police at 2 o'clock in the morning. But after I found out he was okay, I found it quite humorous, because my dad was going to me all the time, never ever bring any trouble to this house now, he'd be chucked out. And my mum said, what's wrong, what's wrong? Oh, my dad's been arrested. Is he right? Yeah. And I just burst up laughing. And my mum, to be fair, she did give me a row. She slapped me across the head for being cheeky.
Because it was that reversal of fortunes, wasn't it? There's you, the youngster, and there's your father, who's supposed to be the pillar of the community, and he's the one getting arrested.
Yes.
Very interesting dynamic.
You were at the Ogmore Washery when the strike happened?
Yes, and I was picketing on gate number 1 of Port Talbot, and somebody had punched this policeman. They grabbed me and dragged me off. It wasn't me, it was somebody behind me. But the policeman I was supposed to have hit wasn't a policeman. Took me off then to Port Talbot police station, and I felt like a criminal. I mean, took in photos, my handprints, slate then with my number on, and I had to go to court then a couple of months later, pay £50 fine. I didn't pay it, the union paid it. And they got up and questioned me, and I said, excuse me, I didn't touch that man, which I didn't.
No.
And I said, that man, you said I hit, but there, it wasn't him.
You got a criminal record from the strike for an offence that you never did.
No.
And even when they brought the evidence of who was hit was a different man to the man who was hit on the... That is quite shocking, isn't it, really?
was an Irish activist before I became a miners activist. And I've always been one to fight for things. I joined the Labour Party and they weren't doing anything to help the miners, so I told them to go to hell. And I decided I would join in with the socialists because they were the only people that were helping them. They told me that McGregor was coming, so I decided now I'd go down to Cardiff and I bought half a dozen eggs. So we came out and I threw the eggs at them. They turned round and they said, "Oh, why did you do that to that old man?" I hit him on the side of the face with the egg. I said the Yankee butcher should go back home. I didn't know I was on television. And I said, "Oh," I said, "old bugger, he should go back to America." And I said, "It shouldn't have been an egg, it should have been a bomb." And my husband, when I come home, he said, "What is wrong with you?" He said, "You're Irish, you can't go around telling people you're going to throw bombs," like, you know.
The strike periods affected everybody in the valley, you know. Obviously, it affected the shops as well because people didn't have money to spend in the shops. But it affected, you know, if you had a big family, it would affect it because we weren't having there was no money coming in at all.
What have we learnt from doing this wonderful documentary about the miners and the history of mines? If you're like me, I've laughed and cried in equal measure. I really have. It's been fascinating to learn so much. I get a little bit more about where my granddad was working when he was down the pit. I hope that it does that for you as well. Makes you think about those dying breed of men and women, those families who gave so much in what was a very brutal industry.
Look around you. These views over the valley are as timeless as mounting mist. You're at the old Convent colliery, where once the miners walked and worked. New life is beginning to blossom. Everything you see here is connected. The coal laid down by ancient seas to the leaves of the newly planted trees. I am the keeper of the collieries. I am men who toil through rock and mud, for coal as black as dragon's blood. I am the days in halls of stone, the hearths and hearts that call them home. Now a new generation's blistered hands are planting hopes and greening lands. I am a fledgling forest growing strong, a new verse in a valley's song, old as coal and fresh as summer rain. I am the spirit of Llynvi, born again.
And the mining industry's gone, but we can continue to learn from it. Let's meet again. See you later. Ta-ra.